Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to week 4 of season 7 of the Lyons Den Quiz League. Currently, the standings, well, let's see. Last week I finished in 8th place, as you can see here. And then in week 2 I was in 1st, and in week 1 I was also in 1st, which is crazy, because I think that's probably the first time I've ever finished 1st in 2 consecutive weeks. Week 3 was a little tougher, but still fine. So it's now week 4. The overall standings look like this for the season. I can hide my... Actually, okay, they're not accurate right now, but what's... because a lot of people have played 4 weeks. But what's worth noting is that at the end of week 3, the top 3, one of which was me, were all within like 1 point of each other. So it's insanely close. And yeah, with that, we're going to get started with week number 4. Starting with quiz number 1, written by Benny. It's called Deja Vu. Laszlo Toth is the protagonist of the film The Brutalist, where he is played by what actor seen below? This actor also frequently acts in Wes Anderson movies, appearing in films like The Grand Budapest Hotel and The Darjeeling Limited. No clue. Absolutely no idea. I don't think I've ever seen this man's face in my life. I probably have at some point, but I don't know. I don't know. I'm going to guess Johnson, because that is a name that some people sometimes have. But I have no clue who this is. I don't know. I mean, The Brutalist I know is a movie that's up for Best Picture and might win it. So it's pretty famous, but I haven't seen the movie. I haven't seen the 2 movies listed here either. I think I started watching Grand Budapest Hotel, but I think we quit like 15 minutes in. So anyway, it's supposed to be good, but anyway, I didn't get through the movie on the occasion that we decided to watch it, so it doesn't matter. I'm just yapping. I don't know who this guy is. Question 2. Robert E. Lee, a commander of the Confederate Army during the American Civil War, was depicted in an equestrian statue in what city that was finally taken down in 2021 and eventually melted? Earlier, supporters of the statue gathered in this city for the Unite the Right rally, which turned deadly after a man drove his car into a group of counter-protesters. This happened, I believe, in Charlottesville, Virginia. This is kind of a famous thing. There was just a white supremacist rally, basically, in Charlottesville, and Trump called them very fine people or whatever, which is lovely. Anyway, should be Charlottesville, because that is just kind of famously what happened. Question 3. St. Petersburg, Florida is home to Tropicana Field, the home of baseball's Tampa Bay Rays. Absolutely horrendous stadium. Hopefully will not be the home of baseball's Tampa Bay Rays for too much longer. But yeah, it's a horrible venue for baseball. Anyway, among the players for the Rays is Shane McClanahan, who plays what position? His K percentage is at 28% for his career, due in part to his outstanding changeup. So this question is laughably easy for me, but I understand, again, this league is very international. I do appreciate that the quiz masters are finally starting to ask a couple of baseball questions, but realistically, in a very international league with people who don't follow a lot of American sports, baseball, this is just always going to be easy. Baseball questions, basketball questions, hockey questions, football questions, none of them are going to be particularly difficult. And then they're going to ask Olympic questions that I have absolutely no clue about. It's just funny to me as somebody who plays a lot of American trivia. I'm used to sports questions actually being quite difficult. And then we get a guy who strikes out 28% of batters and has a changeup, plays what position? And it's just like, But again, it wouldn't shock me if, 20 or 30% of the people playing this don't know that, because people don't follow baseball. And if you don't follow baseball, you're not going to know what that is. Question 4. Gamergate is a term used to refer to examples of what insects that are able to lay eggs despite being workers. They make up the family Formicidae. This is going to be ants. Formicidae, like formica is the Italian word for ant. Fourmi is in French. Anyway, so like formica, that just means ants, and worker ants are very much a thing, so it makes sense. Question 5. Up is the title of an ongoing British documentary series that features interviews with the same set of people at regular intervals throughout their life. The participants are interviewed when their age is a multiple of how many years. With one exception, each entry in the series is titled Blank Up, where the blank is filled in by the participant's age. So, I don't know. I have no idea. I've never heard of this. I'm going to say 7, because 7-Up is obviously, it's a soda, but it's just kind of a phrase that exists. So it could just be 8-Up or 9-Up or 6-Up or whatever, but since I've never heard of the thing, this feels like the most reasonable thing for me to guess, because, I don't know, So hopefully the up clue is actually supposed to point me to the number 7 rather than something else. But maybe it's just a you know it or you don't kind of thing. But if it's not 7, I'm not going to get it. So I'm going to say 7. And finally, question 6. The Blue House in Mexico was the home of what politician and his wife, Natalia Sedova, for 2 years, starting in 1937, after he was exiled from his home country 10 years earlier. So Sedova sounds Russian, or at least Slavic. And I was thinking who's a person who ended up in Mexico and was exiled from Russia. I figure this is probably Leon Trotsky. He famously died in Mexico, so for 2 years, meaning he died in, like, in 1939 or whatever. Got murdered with, like, an ice pick or ice axe or whatever the heck it was. Anyway, I think this is just Leon Trotsky. I mean, maybe it's, like, Rasputin or something, but I feel like that doesn't make nearly as much sense. So I think it should be Trotsky. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to go for on that one. And then as for what to enhance, I don't know. Number 2, maybe? Charlottesville? I mean, if you're outside the U.S., maybe that's not as famous. 1 is wrong. 3, even though a lot of people don't know baseball, surely this is pretty easy. 4 feels quite easy. 5, I don't know if that's correct or not. So I'll go with 2. And 7 is correct. Nice. Let's go. Adrian Brody. I've heard of the man, but never ever going to get that. I mean, yeah, I've heard his name, but that's about all I can say. I don't know anything about him. If you ask me who is Adrian Brody, I might have been able to tell you he was an actor, but even then I might have been wrong. But normally when it's like I've heard a name and I have no idea who the person is, it's usually an actor. So yeah, 5 out of 6. I'll take it. I wasn't going to get question 1, so I think that's a perfectly solid start. Quiz 2. Quiz 2 is by Lyons. It's also called Deja Vu, and you're probably about to figure out why. Laszlo Toth, a Hungarian-Australian geologist, became an overnight sensation in 1972 when he used a hammer to smash chunks out of what sculpture housed in the Vatican, depicting Jesus and Mary. This is the only sculpture that Michelangelo ever signed. A sculpture depicting Jesus and Mary should be Pietà, I think. And it has an accent. Can't type accents. I say that every time, but yeah, I mean, other things he did. I mean, he did David, for example, but again, depicting Jesus and Mary is like Mary holding the dying Jesus or whatever it is. So Pietà, I think, should be the answer to this, unless it's some other thing that depicts Jesus and Mary. Question 2. Robert E. Lee was a playwright who, with Jerome Lawrence, wrote Inherit the Wind, a play about the Scopes monkey trial, which concerned the issue of school teachers teaching what scientific theory, which is countered by the religious theory of intelligent design. This is, of course, evolution. Intelligent design being like creationism, whatever, like God created the world in 6 days or whatever it is. This should be the theory of evolution, which, notably is, or at least was at some point, controversial in terms of whether it should be taught in schools. Question 3. St. Petersburg, Russia is the setting of Anastasia, or Anastasia, I guess, a film turned musical loosely based on the Romanov family. In one number, the General Gleb sings The Blank Flows, a new wind blows, and soon it will be spring. Name the river that fills in the blank. Surely this is the Neva. I mean, it says we're in St. Petersburg, and then it says a river. So this question literally boils down to what is the river that flows through St. Petersburg, and that is the Neva. So that surely should be the answer. Question number 4. Now we get into the ones that I don't know. Gamergate was a mid-2010s harassment campaign against women in gaming, including media critic Anita Sarkeesian for her series Tropes versus Women in Video Games. Excuse me. That series' first entry discusses a game where the heroine Crystal was turned into a damsel in distress, needing to be rescued by Slippy Toad, Peppy Hare, and the title anthropomorphic pilot of what Nintendo franchise? A lot of reading for me to say. I have no clue what this is. I'm going to say Kirby because I think that is a Nintendo franchise. Is Kirby an anthropomorphic pilot? I don't think so. I just think he's like a pink blob who eats things, but I don't know. I mean, I can't think of a better answer. I thought about this one for a little while. I just don't know Nintendo franchises, at least not ones that have anthropomorphic pilots in them. So, unlucky. Question 5. Up has an early scene where the elderly Carl enters a courtroom with what room number? Because this alphanumeric room number was shared by the CalArts classroom where many Pixar staff got their starts. It has become an Easter egg that features in every Pixar film, including Finding Nemo and Toy Story. I have no clue what this is. Like, this feels very, you either know it or you don't. Like, if you've heard of this, you're going to get it. if you haven't heard of this, you have absolutely no chance unless you get incredibly lucky. But I've just never heard of this, and it's weird because I've seen almost all the Pixar movies, but I don't know. So I'm going to say B4 and move on with my life because I don't know. Finally, question 6. The Blue House is the nickname of the former presidential residence until 2022 when it was converted to a public park in what country? A recent viral video showed this country's opposition leader jumping the metal fence outside of its parliament building. Again, no idea. I feel like the only... Okay, I mean, there's two ways to get it. You either know what the Blue House is, or you have heard of the viral video. I'm guessing the viral video is probably more famous, but I don't know viral videos because I'm not very online, at least in that way. There's certain things that just don't really reach me. So I don't know what this is. I'm going to go ahead and say that it is Finland, but this is like a complete and utter guess. I have no actual idea what this is. It could be just about any country in the world, but I don't see any clues to really narrow it down. So just going to go with Finland. As for what to enhance, I don't know, because the Neva... I mean, if you know the Neva is the river in St. Petersburg, you're going to get that. But the question is, how many people actually know that? Versus, how difficult is Pietà? Like, I mean, I feel like Pietà is quite famous. But arts and literature always play harder than I expect them to. And geography is just, it just feels dangerous, enhancing geography. But, like... I'm still going to go for the Neva. Am I? Man. How many people know the river in St. Petersburg? Like, that feels not that obvious, but, like, it's a geography server, so I don't know. Any normal trivia audience, like, surely you would enhance 3, but it's just, it's less obvious in this case, it feels like. Ah, man. Ah, God. I don't know. I really can't decide. Let me pause the recording and just think about it for a minute. Okay, I've decided I'm just going to enhance the Neva. I think it's hopefully difficult enough that even some geography people won't know it. So, yeah, we'll see. Now we got to do the thing. Just click like, do these count? I'm going to say they do. No, they don't. Of course they don't. Like, what percentage of the square has to be covered by the motorcycle for it actually to count as a motorcycle? Pietà, Evolution, Neva, Star Fox, oh my god, okay. 3 out of 6, South Korea, man. I mean, I knew about South Korea, like, the whole martial law thing, but this didn't sound like that to me. I feel like this is probably just a separate incident that I have never heard of. Star Fox I've heard of, but I'm never pulling it. Like, I just don't know what Star Fox is. I just have no clue. And then A113 is crazy. That seems super difficult. Like, how well known is this? I don't know. I mean, Pixar is like 20 minutes from me, but and I think I'd actually been to the studio once when I was a kid, but this is not something I would ever have known. So fair play to anybody who gets that. Quiz 3, pop culture. Specifically, Popitical culture, I believe is the name of the quiz. By the way, the first 2 quizzes, if you didn't notice, every question was about something with the same name as something in the other quiz, which is quite a cool concept. Anyway, quiz 3, pop culture. Number 1, tensions from a recent revolution led to a physically violent water polo match at the 1956 Melbourne Olympics. Which 2 countries went head-to-head in that blood in the water match? Okay. All right. It's a bit of a problem here. The previous quiz had South Korea as an answer. I was going to say North and South Korea for this one. And now I'm not sure, because why would South Korea be an answer 2 quizzes in a row? That feels a little bit weird. I just thought recent revolution, we could be talking about the Korean War. I mean, it's not exactly a revolution, is it? So it's probably wrong, but I couldn't think of a better guess for this is the problem. It might just be some random thing in like Europe, but I don't know. I don't have a better guess. I thought about this one for a while and I didn't come up with anything else that I knew happened in the 50s. I'm just going to say South Korea, North Korea. Although now I feel even worse about that guess given that there was a South Korea question already. But I'm just not going to get this realistically. I don't know what this is. I've never heard of this, and I think it's quite difficult. So, Just going to take the L on that question. Question 2, the Canadian Caper was a joint operation between Canada and the USA to rescue a set of American diplomats, whereby a set of operatives pretended to be shooting a fake sci-fi film to gain access to the country the diplomats were being held. Name this fake film, which also lends its name to a real Ben Affleck film retelling the story. This is Argo. This is an excellent movie. I watched it on a plane probably a couple of years ago. Yeah, that's exactly what happens. It's kind of a crazy story, but it is based on a true story, and that's kind of cool. But they were being held in Iran. It was the whole Iran hostage crisis and stuff, and there were diplomats stuck in Iran. So anyway, very, very good movie, and it won Best Picture, and yeah, I can see why. Question 3. What country's entry to the 1974 Eurovision Song Contest? I groaned when I read that because I don't know anything about Eurovision, and to be honest, I really don't care about Eurovision, but thankfully, there is an alternate way into this question. So their entry was used as a secret signal for rebels to begin a coup that would become known as the Carnation Revolution. Blah, blah, blah. The Carnation Revolution happened in Portugal, so thankfully I just can get this through history knowledge rather than having to know anything about Eurovision, which is nice because that kind of gets me out of having to answer the pop culture question with pop culture knowledge. So cheers for that. Question 4, the 1997 episode The Puppy episode is so controversial that even its guest stars, including Laura Dern, were unable to find work for months after it aired. In one of that episode's most iconic scenes, the character Ellen Morgan leans close to Susan to do what action? Unintentionally doing it in front of an airport's announcement system. I have no clue what's happening here. I'm going to say a kiss, because if you kiss in front of an airport's announcement system, people might hear it and it might be weird. But like, I don't know. Makes sense. What do you lean close to someone to do? Like, sure. Also, I don't know what this show is, because the question doesn't actually say what the show is, which makes me even more confused. So I don't even know where we are, what we're doing. I have no clue, but I'm going to say it's a kiss and hope that it's right. Question 5. Paul Simon's 1986 album Graceland was heavily influenced by local musical genres he wanted to popularize after traveling to which country? His trip to this country was met with ire from many activist groups who criticized him for violating an ongoing boycott. This is South Africa, I believe. The South African band that he famously collaborated with on that album is called Ladysmith Black Mambazo, which is named after the city, I believe, of Ladysmith in South Africa. But yeah, that's just, that album has a lot of sort of African themes in it, I guess. Like Diamonds on the Soles of Her Shoes is like, oh, what, you know, anyway, you know the thing, or you don't. If you don't, you should probably listen to the album, because honestly, it's pretty good. But this should be South Africa, unless I'm getting like giga-baited. And then finally, question 6, what conflict is being most directly addressed by the songs whose lyrics are excerpted below? With their tanks and their bombs and their bombs and their guns, in your head they are crying. That is Zombie by the Cranberries. Now, Zombie is about bomb, like it says. I mean, like IRA, like car bombings in Ireland. And I think, presumably, what's going on is that this is like the Troubles, because I think that song was written as a protest against things that were happening at the time. I mean, my other thoughts for like conflicts in Ireland would be like the Easter Rising or whatever, which was like 1916. But the song Zombie says it's the same old thing since 1916. I mean, that's a lyric in the song. So, you know, we're talking about things that are happening after 1916, not in 1916. So I think this is just the Troubles, which is just that I think decades long just kind of period of conflict in Ireland and Northern Ireland. So basically, I'm pretty sure that this is the Troubles. If it's not, I don't know what it is, but I feel like this kind of has to be the answer, because I can't think of another conflict that happened in Ireland during that time. So surely, by the way, I don't know what the second song is, but the first one is definitely Zombie by the Cranberries. Another excellent song. And I think I'll enhance number 6, to be honest, because I feel like it's got to be right, surely. And it just feels like the hardest one here that I have. I mean, the first one's probably quite hard, but I don't know the answer. Argo just feels like it's famous. This one you could get through either the Eurovision knowledge or through the Carnation Revolution, which makes it probably not super hard. 4, I don't know. 5, again, it's also possible. I think I'm going to go with 6. Maybe this is a mistake, but you have to know the songs in order to figure out what's even happening. So that feels definitely non-trivial. So I'll hope that that's the right choice. Oh, it's Sunday Bloody Sunday by U2. Yep, that makes sense. That makes sense. I missed a trivia question on that like literally yesterday. Apparently I need to listen to that song and actually learn the lyrics. South Africa, Argo, and Portugal. Those are all correct. Comes out as gay. Interesting. That makes sense, I guess. I still don't know what the show is, but sure. I don't think I would have pulled that. And then Hungary and the USSR. My goodness. Never would have pulled that. Again, that's you either have to know what that thing is or you have to have impressively deep history knowledge to be able to pull that, because that just feels quite difficult. So yeah, honestly, I'm okay with 4 out of 6 on this, given it's a pop culture quiz, and I think it also had the lowest average of the week. So honestly, pretty happy with how that one turned out, because I don't often do super well in the pop culture quizzes. So yeah, we take those. Quiz 4, this is a media quiz, and I'm not going to play the clips in the video because they are going to get copyright struck. So I will leave a link to a Google Drive folder in the description. If you want to listen to these clips before you hear me talk about the questions, just pause the video and go listen to them. But I'm going to go ahead and talk about what actually is going on in these clips. Except for number 1, because I don't know what's going on in number 1. The songs heard in this clip are credited to related artists with what last name? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, you can listen to the clips yourself if you want, but I don't know what's going on here. I'm going to say that it's Sinatra, which again feels a little bit dubious given that I think there was a Sinatra question like last week. But the last one sounded like it could have been Frank Sinatra. The last song felt like the only one I might have heard before, but you hear one word. He just says like love at the end, and the rest is like just some, I don't know. I have no idea. First 2 songs I've never heard in my life. I can't think of another musical family that is a better guess than this, so I'm just going to go ahead and say Sinatra, but I really don't know. Question 2, the unrelated artists heard in this clip share what last name? Song 1, no idea what it is. Song 2, no idea what it is. Song 3 is definitely Sam Smith. He just has a very distinctive voice. So this question is the reason I guessed Johnson and not Smith for question 1 and quiz 1. But again, I'm not sure what the first 2 are, but the third one should be Sam Smith. Question number 3. Stage names of all 3 performers heard singing below, not the band they are a part of, all have what name in common, either as a first name or a last name? First song is, I think, Don't Want to Miss a Thing, or I Don't Want to Miss a Thing by Aerosmith. I might be misremembering because I listened to it yesterday. It was definitely an Aerosmith song. The second one was Holding Out for a Hero by Bonnie Tyler, which is a banger, by the way. And the third one, I think it was rap. I don't think I had any idea what it was, but it's probably Tyler, the Creator, given what's going on in the question. Anyway, the second one's by Bonnie Tyler. The first one, it's funny because Aerosmith, I mean, I know a fair few songs by Aerosmith, but I have no idea what the name of the lead singer of Aerosmith is. To me, they've always just been Aerosmith. But anyway, the second one's Bonnie Tyler, and there's no way the answer is Bonnie because that just doesn't really make sense. So Tyler could be a first name or a last name. Tyler, the Creator, Bonnie Tyler, and then Tyler something or something Tyler. I'm not sure. I don't know who the guy is, but he's the lead singer of Aerosmith, whatever his name is. Question 4. The people heard in this clip share what first name? I'm trying to remember what this question was. Right, this was the one where there are 2 clips. One of them is a guy singing and one of them is just a guy talking. The first one was thankfully fairly easily recognizable to me as the voice of Bruce Springsteen. The second one was, after knowing that the first one is Bruce Springsteen, I figure the second one is Bruce Lee. It's just a guy with a Chinese sounding accent talking, which I guess is from like a Bruce Lee movie or something. But the first name here should be Bruce. Question number 5. What first name is shared by the player of the main instrument heard in the first clip and the athletes heard in the last 2 clips? So the instrument in the first clip is the extremely distinctive guitar of Carlos Santana, more commonly known as just Santana. But again, I know a fair few songs by Santana. I don't remember exactly which one this was, but anyway, it was definitely Santana's guitar. The second one was a tennis player based off of the way that he was talking, so I figure it's probably Carlos Alcaraz. And then the third one was a Formula One driver, and I don't know Formula One drivers, so I don't know the name of the third guy, but the first name should be Carlos. And finally, question 6, what name is the first name of the person heard in the first clip, the middle name of the person heard in the middle clip, and the last name of the person heard in the last clip? What was this one again? This one was... Oh my goodness, why do I not remember what this question was? Dude, when I can't, I mean, if I heard the clips, it'd be immediate. I just, give me a sec. Right. So the first one was a rap song I think I've never heard before. The second one was a clip of what sounded like an American president talking. And the third one was a clip of an author doing an interview about the book The Color Purple. The Color Purple was written by Alice Walker, so the last name would be Walker, which led me to the middle one, surely is George Walker Bush. And the first one, still don't know, but don't really need to, because surely the answer here is going to be Walker. So, as for what to enhance, I think I like 3 the best, just because I knew Bonnie Tyler, but that feels not super obvious necessarily. And the other ones I didn't know. Bruce feels pretty gettable, especially Bruce Lee is probably more famous to most people. Carlos feels gettable. Walker, I mean, George Bush, I think, has a pretty distinctive voice. Smith is gettable because of Sam Smith. I'm going to go with 3. 1 may even be a better enhance, but the problem is I don't know the answer to 1. So we're just going to run with this. Okay, man. Sure. Do I click the handlebars? I'm going to not click the handlebars. Thank you. Okay. Cash. Oh, for God's sake. I'm actually never beating the allegations, man. You gotta be kidding me. It's like an inside joke among me and a few of my friends that I don't know anything about Johnny Cash. There was some kind of thing that came up about Johnny Cash before, and I asked if he was a country singer because I didn't really know anything about him. And they were like, bro, how do you not know anything about Johnny Cash? I'm like, I don't know. I've never listened to this man's music. Like, it was never prominent in my life. So I don't know, man. I don't know anything about Johnny Cash. But, God damn it. I'm just doomed never to get a Johnny Cash question right. For crying out loud. I had no idea he had relatives who were also musicians. So I wasn't going to get that, but... God damn it. Elliott Smith, Will Smith. Oh, Will Smith makes sense, doesn't it? But Sam Smith is indeed correct. Bonnie Tyler, Steven Tyler is the Aerosmith guy. Noted. Bruce Springsteen and Bruce Lee. Carlos Santana Alcaraz and Sainz, or whatever, I'm not sure. And then finally, Walker. Walker Hayes was the first one. George W. Bush and Alice Walker. 5 out of 6. Honestly, for a music quiz, I'll take that. This one did have a very high average, and I think that makes sense, just given, I mean, the quizzes have multiple clips in them, and for most of them, you kind of just have to know what one of the things are. One of the things is, rather than knowing what all of them are. So it makes sense that it has fairly high get rates across the board, but I am pretty happy, honestly, with a 5 out of 6. So let's move to quiz 5, which is all about second things in geography. Number 1, as of 2011, Algeria is the largest country in Africa. Which country is the second largest? So the reason it became the largest in Africa in 2011 is because Sudan split into Sudan and South Sudan. The problem is I'm not actually sure what the answer to this is. There's a few options. It could still be Sudan. North Sudan could still be the second largest. It could be Niger. It could be Libya. It could be the DRC. It could be... I don't think it's Chad or anything else. So it's one of them. I'm not sure. I'm going to say it's the DRC because I know that the DRC is very big and maybe even slightly bigger than it looks because it's right on the equator. So, Mercator projection, etc. I know that the DRC is massive, but the problem is I don't know the countries of Africa by area in order. It's just not something that I've ever looked at because it's just, I don't know. I don't look at the orders of things like this. So I'm not sure, to be honest with you, but the answer very well may be like Niger or Sudan, but South Sudan is pretty big, so I feel like Sudan got a fair bit smaller. So I'm going to go with DRC, but I don't know. Question 2. The shortest straight line distance between the capitals of two different South American countries is approximately 208 kilometers between Buenos Aires and Montevideo. What two capital cities are the next closest pair? So I thought about this for a bit. The only two reasonable answers that I could think of were Georgetown and Paramaribo in Guyana and Suriname, and La Paz and Sucre in Bolivia, which are technically two capitals of the same country. But first of all, that seems a little bit devilish. Like, I don't think they would actually have that be the answer. And second of all, Bolivia is also pretty big. I mean, I don't know. It definitely could be, but it just feels like that's not what they're going for, because two capitals of the same country would be kind of a cringe way to ask this question. So I think it's probably Georgetown and Paramaribo, because I thought about the other ones: Bogota, Caracas, Quito, Santiago, Asuncion, etc. None of them are particularly close to anything else. So yeah, this just felt like by far the most reasonable guess. Question 3. Unsurprisingly, Italy is the most populous country that lists Italian as an official language. Which country is the next most populous to list Italian as an official language? This is just going to be Switzerland. I believe Italian is official in Italy, Switzerland, San Marino, and Vatican City, and I think that's it. Unless it's technically official in like Slovenia, at least in coastal Slovenia, but I don't think it's like official across the whole country. So Switzerland, I think, is just the only reasonable guess here, so I'm just going to go with that. Question 4, whether you use the city proper or the metro area, the answer is the same. Which city is the second most populous city in North America? I think that it's just New York, because Mexico City, I believe, is more populous than New York, and I don't think anything else in Mexico is nearly that populous. So New York's definitely the biggest in the US. It's definitely bigger than anything in Canada. And I think it is smaller than Mexico City, but larger than everything else in Mexico. So, New York City. Hopefully that is right. Question 5. According to the World Atlas, Bhutan has the highest average elevation of any country at 3,280 meters. What country, whose average elevation is just 15 meters less than Bhutan's, is second on the list? Tajikistan is the only other country with an average elevation above 3,000 meters. Okay. This one is bugging me because I don't know. And again, like, I don't love the concept of quizzes where it's just like, guess how things are ranked based off vibes. Like, again, the areas of countries in Africa, unless you've like actually looked up a list of the areas, you're not going to know that. It's just going to be you're kind of guessing, which is, again, not my favorite kind of question personally. This one is another one that's like, I can narrow it down, but I can't be confident about an answer because it just feels like there are multiple options for something like this. So my first thought was Liechtenstein, but then I realized, wait a second, it's not in a particularly high part of the Alps, and there are also a lot of areas in Liechtenstein that are surprisingly low elevation, like in the Rhine Valley. So I think Liechtenstein is just too low. Same thought process for Lesotho in Africa. I know that Lesotho has the highest low point of any country, and it's somewhere around 1,500 meters, but I don't think that the high point of Lesotho is actually that high. I would guess that it's somewhere around 3,000 or 4,000, but for the average elevation to be above 3K, I just don't think Lesotho is that high. I don't think Southern Africa has mountains that are that tall. So yeah, I don't think it's Lesotho either. I figured it has to be a landlocked country, surely. One of my other thoughts was Bolivia. The issue with Bolivia is that eastern Bolivia is just low. I mean, the whole Amazon rainforest, and a lot of Bolivia is Amazon rainforest. So even though the areas around La Paz are very, very high, I don't think it can be Bolivia either. Which left me with, as far as I can tell, two reasonable options. The options I have in my head are Nepal and Kyrgyzstan. Now, here's the thing. I have no clue how to choose between Nepal and Kyrgyzstan. To me, this is a 50-50. Both of them honestly seem like iffy answers, because it's like, if you're talking about Bhutan, it's kind of silly that the answer would be Nepal because it's right next to it, but it could work. And if you're talking about Tajikistan, would it really be another stand that's right next to Tajikistan? Maybe. I mean, either seems entirely reasonable, but here's the thing. Like, Bhutan has almost no low areas. The areas in the far south, like Phuncholing and Gyeongju, those cities are fairly low, but they're in such tiny flat areas, and everything above them is just very, very mountainous. Nepal has a lot more flat land in the southern, like, fifth or so of the country. There is definitely a pretty decently sized area of flat plain that I think is quite low elevation. The thing is, Nepal is super tall because it obviously has Everest. So the lows are lower, but the highs are also higher. So, like, Nepal has, it has Everest and it has Annapurna and all that stuff. It is some of the highest peaks of the Himalayas. So Nepal's reasonable, but Kyrgyzstan is too, because it's also in a very, very high mountain area, like the Tian Shan Mountains. Most of it is very, very mountainous, and even the parts that aren't, I think, are quite high elevation, like Issyk-Kul and all the mountain plateaus that you have up there. So Kyrgyzstan seems equally reasonable to me. I mean, especially given the knowledge that Tajikistan is also above 3,000. And my thought is like, okay, if Tajikistan has a lot of mountains in the south, but I feel like the northern part of Tajikistan, like Kujand, that kind of area there is sort of in the Fergana Valley. And I feel like the Fergana Valley is maybe a little bit less high than the rest of Central Asia, but I'm not sure. It might just be like a flat area that's still really high. But I don't think of any part of Kyrgyzstan as necessarily being very low. So I think I'm going to say Kyrgyzstan here, but I really don't know. And I think it's one of the two. But again, it's annoying because I know quite a lot about these countries, but I see no good way to choose between the two. Like, it's going to be one of them, and I just don't know which. So I'm just going to admit defeat and go for the coin flip and hope that it's Kyrgyzstan and not Nepal. Finally, question 6. Zagreb is the only world capital that starts with a Z, so it is last alphabetically in the list of world capitals. Which capital city is second to last on the list? This was a pain because I cannot just think of, like, capitals and just know, okay, I'm going to think of all the capitals that start with Y, and they just, like, pop into my head. That's not how it works. That's not how my brain works. So I had to scan the entire map in my head and check all the capitals of all the countries and see which one of them start with Y. I believe there are 3 of them. There are Yaran in Nauru, Yaoundé in Cameroon, and Yerevan in Armenia. Last one alphabetically is Yerevan. So hopefully it's Yerevan. Hopefully I didn't miss something. That was a lot of yapping, but the number 5 is just kind of annoying because it's like I know what's going on, but I just can't choose. I can't choose between the two. So what do I enhance? I don't know. 1 I don't feel confident about. 5 either. 3 and 4 are too easy. 2 and 6, both are moderately difficult. I think I'll go with 2 because 6 just feels like people just, I don't know, they're going to know what Yerevan is. They're going to be able to figure that out. Georgetown and Paramaribo, you might at least either not know the capitals of those countries or guess something else. So I'll go with 2. And I cannot wait for it to be Nepal, but I just don't know. Oh my gosh. Knew it. I knew it. I knew that was going to happen. God. I mean, is the rationale just like it has Everest, so it's high? Like, it makes perfect sense, but it's like, is there a good reason it isn't Kyrgyzstan? Like, I don't know. Maybe Kyrgyzstan is way lower than I thought, but if I had to guess, I would say that they're still reasonably close, but I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. It's a rough one. It's a 50-50, and yeah. Came out on the wrong side of it. 5 out of 6 on the geography quiz. Still not bad. Just slightly miffed about question 5. And we head to quiz 6, which is a science quiz. To date, 4 space probes have left the solar system. 2 are named Pioneer, and the other 2 have what name? Of which they are 1 and 2. This is Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, which notably left the solar system, I don't know, 10 years ago or so. At least one of them did, but they exited the heliosphere, which is, I think, the formally defined border of the solar system. So they are indeed called a Voyager. Question 2. What biologically derived term is used for the central component of an operating system that interfaces between its hardware and its applications? No idea. Science, I mean, I'm not great at science, but I feel like I'm passably good at most science subjects. The one science subject I cannot do anything with is computer science. I have no clue what's going on whenever anyone asks me anything about a computer. So I'm going to say that this is the heart, and I don't know. I can't think of another biologically derived term that has anything to do with computers. I say another. I don't know if heart has anything to do with computers either, but I just don't know. So I'm going to take the L on that one. Question 3, the phrase "I get smashed" is a mnemonic that reminds doctors of possible causes of inflammation of what organ in the endocrine system? Alpha cells in this organ's islets of Langerhans secrete glucagon. The islets of Langerhans are in the pancreas. This is, I don't know. I mean, glucagon, insulin, diabetes, it's just associated with the pancreas anyway. But yeah, the islets of Langerhans are notably a thing that is in the pancreas. I just know that because Quiz Bowl. I know a lot of things because Quiz Bowl, but yeah. It definitely helps with this stuff sometimes. Question 4. Carved into Ludwig Boltzmann's tombstone is the formula S equals K log W, where K is Boltzmann's constant, W is the number of microstates, and S is what quantity that measures a thermodynamic system's disorder. This is going to be entropy. Disorder, I mean, entropy is notably just a measure of how disorderly a system is. So S is entropy. Question 5. Global Positioning System, GPS, satellites need to be incredibly precisely tuned. What phenomenon whose gravitational and kinetic forms are predicted by general and special relativity, respectively, causes GPS satellites to gain about 38 microseconds a day due to the difference between the atomic clocks on the ground and on the satellites? So there was a famous experiment about this, I believe. An experiment that set out to show the effects of time dilation and prove... well, not prove, but, support Einstein's theories of relativity. But anyway, this is going to be time dilation. This is just what happens when you not only are in an area with lower gravity, but also when you are moving fast, when something is orbiting the Earth versus when something is stationary on its surface. Lower gravity makes time go slower, but the fact that the thing is moving fast more than makes up for that. So, so anyway, the time is going to go... time goes slow to gain about 38 microseconds. Does that mean the time goes slow? It doesn't matter. I would assume that time goes slower for the thing that's moving faster around the thing, but maybe it's because of the gravity effect. I'm not actually sure which is stronger, but it doesn't matter. Basically, time moves differently for different things depending on what's going on. If you're going super fast, time goes slowly. In reference to like a stationary observer. Anyway, way too much yapping. This is time dilation, I'm pretty sure. And then finally, question 6, Kramer's rule for solving a system of linear equations involves rewriting the system as a series of matrices, then deriving the desired coefficients by applying a particular function to matrices and comparing the ratios. What is that particular function? One way to represent this function may take the form AD minus BC, where there are entries in a 2x2 matrix. AD minus BC is the determinant of a 2x2 matrix. That's just, I don't know. I took a lot of math. Just know what a determinant is, I guess. So, as for what to enhance, honestly, again, I don't know. There's a lot of these feel pretty similar in terms of difficulty, so I'm really not sure what I want to go with. I think I'll go Voyager just because it feels, again, I learned this in like an astronomy class, but that feels not necessarily that obvious. And then... The determinant's maybe another good one too, but I swear every time there's a math question in these leagues, it plays a lot easier than I expect it to because everyone knows math apparently. So I'll enhance Voyager. I don't know if it's a mistake or not, but we're going with it. Motorcycles, all right. Voyager, kernel, what? Okay, pancreas entropy time dilation determinant. It's 5 out of 6. Again, that's totally fine. I'm okay with that. Most of the ones I'm missing this week feel like they're kind of mostly out of my reach. I mean, there's a couple ones that I probably should have had, but like I'm doing totally okay here. I'm pretty happy with the results so far. So kernel, I don't even know how is that biological? What does kernel mean in a biological sense? Like to me, kernel just means popcorn, or it means like the null space of a matrix, but I don't know what kernel means in a biological sense, but either way, I was never going to get that. I don't know anything about computers, but again, 5 out of 6, totally fine with that. Yeah, I'm just happy generally with how this season is going, and I'm doing a lot of trivia these days, and I've been doing a lot more of it recently, and it definitely feels like the performances are slowly improving. I'm just remembering things, I'm learning more things, and I don't know, things are sticking, and things feel like they're getting better, and it's nice to kind of see that improvement. So anyway, love to see it. And then finally, we have quiz 7, which honestly, this might be the easiest quiz in the entirety of the LDQL history for me. Like, I spent probably 30 seconds on this quiz total, which is crazy. And I don't mean to say, I'm not trying to guess shame you guys who didn't do well on this quiz. I'm not saying this quiz is easy. I'm saying this quiz is easy for me because I've talked about this before, and the quiz masters have talked about it as well. But arts and literature quizzes, they say they find really difficult to write because I feel like the general public's familiarity with arts and literature as compared to a trivia buff's familiarity with arts and literature is quite a large gap, more so than with other subjects. So with an arts and lit quiz, to try and balance the difficulty, I think they kind of have to ask questions that they feel might be easier in order to keep it so that the difficulty is actually the same for the general public. What happens there is, since I was a literature player in Quiz Bowl, like I did a lot of literature studying. I didn't actually read. I just studied who wrote things. But I know a lot about literature just from years of kind of studying it. Art less so, but still a decent amount. But when literature quizzes come up in this league, I just kind of know the things because it's like, these are just things that I've studied a lot and they kind of are automatic to me. And this is one of the harder quizzes of the week based off of the average get rate. But for me, this was just pretty automatic. So anyway, I was happy to get what I hope is a 6 out of 6 on this one. Question number 1, the Bulwer Lytton contests which awards the worst opening sentences of novels is inspiredly, oh my God, I can't talk, is inspired by the famously cliche first line of Edward Bulwer Lytton's novel, Paul Clifford, which reads, "It was a dark and stormy night." This is famously in the Peanuts comics of like Snoopy when he's like writing a novel or whatever the heck he's doing. There's so many Peanuts comics where he just writes, it was a dark and stormy night. But this is just kind of a famous phrase. Question 2, name the poem whose opening word what has been translated by Seamus Heaney as so, by Tolkien as lo, and by Maria Headley as bro. This is Beowulf. The first word in Beowulf, which is an Old English poem, is famously difficult to translate. So people have come up with all kinds of different interpretations of it. That's one of the cool things about translation, is that there's not really one right answer. Question 3, what happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun or fester like a sore and then run? So this is a Langston Hughes poem. And the playwright who titled the play after the phrase "the raisin in the sun," or "a raisin in the sun," is Lorraine Hansberry. So either name is fine here, but this is a thing by Langston Hughes. Again, I think this is pretty difficult, but again, this is just something that I know, so I'll take it. Question 4, in the beginning the universe was created. This has made a lot of people very angry and been widely regarded as a bad move. These lines open the restaurant at the end of the universe, the second novel in a trilogy by what author? This is Douglas Adams. This is the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series, Restaurant at the End of the Universe. The other one that I know is, I think, So Long and Thanks for All the Fish is the name of one of the novels in that series, and I think there are 5 of them, but I don't know what the other 2 are. Anyway, Restaurant at the End of the Universe is definitely by Douglas Adams. Question 5, happy late Valentine's Day. The lines, "How do I love thee? Let me count the ways," and "That's my last Duchess painted on the wall, looking as if she were alive," are opening lines of poems by a married couple who shared what surname? These are the Brownings. The first one, "How do I love thee? Let me count the ways," is by Elizabeth Barrett Browning. I think it might be from Sonnets from the Portuguese. I'm not sure. Anyway, it's definitely by Elizabeth Barrett Browning, who was married to the poet Robert Browning, who wrote the poems "My Last Duchess," "Porphyria's Lover," a couple other ones. But they are both named Browning. And finally, question 6, what 3-word command is the opening sentence of Moby Dick? This is, of course, "Call me Ishmael," a very, very famous opening line, one of the most famous opening lines in literature. Yeah, so, I'm happy with it. This is just very, very much up my alley. So I'll take it. I will go for 3 and 5 are probably the hardest. I think I'll enhance 3. It just feels very non-trivial. I don't know if I'm supposed to count the dude or not. I'm just going to go with those 6. I'm getting the hang of this. Call Me Ishmael, Browning, Douglas Adams, Langston Hughes, Beowulf, Dark and Stormy. And there is your 6 out of 6. Very happy with that one. That was a fun quiz. I always like literature quizzes because it's just like, I don't know. it's always satisfying when you just know things, I guess. I mean, that's the fun of playing trivia, isn't it? That was the most obvious statement ever, but yeah, anyway, it's a good time. So that's going to do it for this set of quizzes. And yeah, it's about 2.5 hours before the deadline, so I'm not going to be able to show you well, again, for you guys, it's instantaneous, so I don't know what I'm talking about. I will see you guys in a second, and we'll see how I did for the week. Hello, just here for a quick recap of week number 4. I know this video is going out incredibly late. I'm sorry. Like, I say this in every video, so I'm not going to keep saying it, but I am sorry. Anyway, this is how the week ended. I finished in 7th place. Very solid performance overall, just kind of fairly consistent across quizzes. But, you know, nothing too crazy. Congrats to Bugtown Cowboy, Solar Sensei, and Can Opener in a Can for the top 3 finishes in week number 4. And I will see you guys very soon. And by this time I actually mean very soon. It should be in the next day or two. For the final week 5 of Season 7. And we'll see how everything ended. There's not going to be a championship for Season 7, but I still haven't uploaded the championship for Season 6, so I'll do that soon. So you guys will have a little bit of championship content. And then Season 8 has already started when I'm recording this, so Season 8 will come soon after that. Again, apologies, but I'm going to work on catching up. So thank you for bearing with me. I appreciate it, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.